Hey everybody, it is Patrick McLain. We are back again, as you know, for the second version of Reimagine. I don't know what point we're here in the 72 hours, but again, I would say this is now like the third time I've got to talk to this specific speaker. Over these three times, I would say I probably wasn't expecting it when I first met him, but I would say these are probably the interviews that I look forward to the most now, if not one, like top three. Like, I've come to respect this guy. I've come to respect his perspective. I think there's a lot going on in the market right now, especially what kind of happened in the last 8 to 12 weeks. I think there's a lot of chaos, right? And I think sometimes we're in those moments. It's important to hear from calm, cool, relatively collected voices. So I think you guys will enjoy this. But before I butcher it, Craig, how was your day? How's the weather? How's life? Tell me something really positive and good that's happened to you lately.
Next sort of semester starting in university, in those, so that's going well. Just finished submitting some chapters on a thesis I'm due to submit in the beginning of next year, so they're being reviewed before I finalize that. That's my Doctor of Law. Starting some of the other courses again as the new American semester starts. At Harvard, I'm doing Asian history, so China, Japan, etc., which is very interesting. Just in the first week actually now, so enjoying starting that. Everything else is going well with work and business, and yeah, the only thing I'm not looking forward to is rather than actually going to the US and attending residencies, I now have virtual residencies where I get to get up at sort of god unusual hours because I'm in the UK, and basically sit there on a Zoom call and pretend that I'm meeting people.
And that's you're teaching, or you're there to learn?
No, I'm learning. I'm still a student.
Yeah. So wait, first off, how many schools or how many things or courses or whatever are you taking right now?
You want an honest answer?
I mean, I would prefer one.
20.
Like, and that's on a weekly, like, concurrent basis, or they're staggered?
No, current. They stagger. The Australian universities have a different summertime than the American ones and British ones, so there's a bit of difference. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it becomes easy after a while because in my psych course, I mean, I've got a master's degree in statistics, and yet I have to relearn statistics at a really basic level.
Well, and I kind of wanted to bring this up. I was thinking more towards the end of this conversation, but this seems relevant just on this point. But, you know, I think, again, a lot of students will be watching this. We have a lot of universities we work with. You know, I think for someone like you who takes a lot of classes, that participates in academia, it is fairly eager to learn, it sounds like, or very eager to learn. What have you learned in this transition where, like, physical schools are closed? Like, what are have you seen any upsides? Have you seen any downsides? What would be some advice you would give the students?
Well, it's really good for me. I mean, I'm a bit of a curmudgeon anyway. I never really liked actually physically having to attend university, so that makes my life a bit easier. But even then, I mean, when someone who has Asperger's and is a curmudgeon starts saying, we're being cut off and not interacting, then you know there's a problem. So, I mean, I was just mentioning to you before we started how I've got a doctoral residency where rather than attending for a week and meeting people and actually doing stuff and talking, I'll sit there on a Zoom call at ridiculous hours and pretend that it matters. So
you actually enjoy meeting people in that regard, or maybe you realize after you don't have that experience that there was some benefit in it?
Do I enjoy it? No, but I find benefit from it. I can't say that I enjoy socializing, but it is beneficial. So I do it because it's beneficial. I force myself to do it whether I like it or not.
Wait, I mean, obviously, I don't know, you probably hate to think of yourself as one, but, you know, I know we're all in a bubble, but I'd say you're a bit of a celebrity, at least in the crypto world. But like, wait, so if you're on a Zoom call, if people ever like spot you, do they ever have like a little celebrity moment with their classmate?
I've actually had someone in one of my, in my master's course on politics that I'm doing. I had one of the students has figured out who I am and gone full fanboy and whatever, which I wasn't expecting. But so that's the first time it's actually happened. I've had people on the street do that sort of stuff. In the other day when we went into town, we went just for lunch and things. Now that everything's open again, sort of in England, and someone on the side of the road was working and pulled me over and went, "Hey, you're Craig Wright, aren't you?" And I went, "Yes." Yeah, can I have a photo? Anyway.
You just got to dye your hair, put on some glasses. This is kind of what Superman does. So
do the Clark Kent bit.
Yeah, it's the most lame costume, but apparently it works.
No, no one will recognize me because I've got bad glasses on.
One year I was born, I hate dressing up for Halloween, and like some cute girl wanted me to go out there. So I just put on a suit and like glasses. And then, what are you? I just had a Superman shirt underneath, just open it. And like, it was the easiest, most fun costume ever. But hey, so first off, I think it's been probably 3 months since I talked to you. I think I don't want to say a lot's changed. I'm guessing you would probably say a lot hasn't changed. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen the sentiment and the insanity of this space, of the crypto space. I've seen it go pretty crazy in the last 12 weeks. I think there was a convolution of events. I can't quite put my finger on it. My guess is, from what I can tell, that it was like a marketing branding move. Like someone just said DeFi, or there was some light bulb that went off in someone's head. You know, my question is like, isn't Bitcoin DeFi? Like, is this actually something new, or are we just
decentralized finance? That was something that Mr. Charles Ponzi used. I mean, think about it.
Tell me more about that.
Decentralized. So, in order to raise capital, he wasn't the first one to use it, but decentralized finance is the call by every scammer in human history. Basically, we will enable you to be rich because you'll own shares, which is the old adage when everyone, including the taxi driver, starts to tell you share advice, or in this case, token advice, get out.
So, well, I'd say it's pretty clear that you are not a fan, but like, and I'll tend to agree with you. Like when I first started hearing this term, which I think maybe some less than sophisticated people, as far as in my book, said DeFi, DeFi, DeFi. And I was like, what is DeFi, right? Like, do you even have an actual definition of this? And you know, I had to take a little time to, I guess, research what they were looking at, right? I think
that was never about all this stuff. It's not to do with anything I've said Bitcoin was. It's all things that people who came in afterwards added. The whole uncensorable, immutable chain, that comes from the end of 2010, beginning of 2011, with a writer from the Electronic Frontier Foundation who ran around misunderstanding the concept of Bitcoin, thinking that it basically is this whole thing that anonymizes everything and does Tim May's idea of crypto anarchy, which Bitcoin's the opposite. Bitcoin is not a cryptocurrency, and no blockchain can be. The whole point is to have a public pseudonymous record. So the difference is whether it's eGold or any of these other things, it's not anonymous. And Bitcoin is not the first proof of work distributed cryptocurrency, full stop. The first one I know of is Shamir and Rivest had an idea in 1995. The only difference between Bitcoin really and things like Mnet and Mojo Nation, both linked, is Bitcoin's not anonymous. every cryptocurrency tried to be anonymous. David Shaw wanted a blinded system that enabled full anonymity. The other people who did CHJ and some of the other blinded currencies, fully anonymous. The difference is Bitcoin did not go anonymous. That's the big difference. I made a system that is never anonymous.
Well, and I think that's the one thing that I figured out about you, and I'm still very convinced people probably do not truly understand about you, is that you're actually like, when you talk about Bitcoin, and I think a whole nother sector who thinks they're into Bitcoin, right? They're like very anarchists and like they want destruction of governments and, you know, transaction records and all this stuff.
So what do we replace it with? We get rid of government, and then what?
Okay, so let's tie that back, right? Okay, so let's look at this DeFi stuff, and I'll just say, and again, I had to like actually dig in the last few weeks because I was like, what are they talking about? Only in this new phenomena that happened, like and I'm like saying it's 100% new, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
It's called web IPOs, which were a big thing until which everyone ran around in between 1994 and 1999, running around going, it's decentralized, it's distributed, you can't stop us, until the SEC went, actually, we can. And they'll learn this. I mean, there's no such thing as a decentralized, no agent system. Full stop. Bitcoin's not.
So hang on. I just want to pull out this one point. So like, and again, I want to make sure we're on the same page here. I definitely think that the term DeFi is somewhat broad, but I want to zoom out on just what I think happened in the last 8 to 12 weeks, which is like, there's things like Uniswap, there's things like Balancer. Are you aware of these kind of like the decentralized liquidity pools?
They're just liquidity pools. What's the centralized? All this, they're centralized versus decentralized. There's no such thing as decentralized here. I mean, the word decentralized has meanings in economics. It has meanings in politics. It's just been thrown out there as jargon, meaninglessly. So what are you meaning by decentralized? Actually define the term rather than widely just broadcasting this thing going, it's decentralized. What do you mean by that?
So I think they would probably define it as, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, I'm saying they would define it as no central authority, hopefully, right? That there's probably some gradient between has the access to the keys or not, that things are locked in smart contracts.
But there's no such thing as a smart contract. Full stop. There cannot be a smart contract. Artificial intelligence, this idea from 1958 is bullshit. It was bullshit then, it's bullshit now. It's smart in the sense that someone has done algorithms. There's no artificial intelligence. There's no intelligence in a machine.
Right.
We have not progressed one iota towards a smart machine. We have better algorithms designed by people. The agency in a system is humans. I mean, lots of Silicon Valley people want you to believe that there's something smart, because when that car by Tesla runs someone over, they can go, it's the computer, not me. When the system by Google sort of takes a applicant who's a minority or a woman and rejects them for no reason, they can go, it's the computer, not our culture, which is bullshit. Google got in trouble because sexist hiring practices. It was not the computer. It was programmed in the computer. At the end of the day, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. There won't be in my life. I mean, we love to run around going, the computer's going to be smart. The computers aren't smart. My toaster is just as smart as the smartest supercomputer out there. In fact, if I go to the garden and I get a slug and I stomp on it and spray it and set it on fire, 5 minutes later, that slug is still smarter than the smartest computer that we have invented.
Do you see what the Elon Musk that they're going to demo the Neuralink on Friday? Like, actually working. They
That's
have
just,
like a person.
it's old technology. I mean, this idea of being able to change delta waves, alpha waves, whatever else by thinking, it's been around for a long time. I mean, and we sit there going, we'll be able to think at the computer. We're a long way from that. And they're nice toys.
If it did exist, if you had a natural input device just by thinking what you wanted to type, would you use it?
I do in a way now. I talk at my computer.
Sure, okay, but like in an invasive surgery type thing that could make your thoughts react much faster, would you consider it?
No, because it's going to end up with scar tissue in your mind. It will cause the other. It won't make your thoughts any quicker. The computer will crash just as often. I mean, remember 5 years ago, we had promises of self-driving cars. We've got promises of flying vehicles and taxis. Silicon Valley comes up with this crap all the time. They promise all the time, and we go, wow, isn't that good? And we throw money at them. Where is it? What do we got? We got Facebook and fucking TikTok.
Well, and I will say one thing, I'm remembering now. I did disagree with you a little bit last time, I think, just because I have friends in the city and I came to love the city a little bit, but I really wanted to pull out from you before, like, what was your vitriol when you think about Silicon Valley, right? And I think I had pulled out last time that, I think you kind of separate what were hardware companies actually producing value, companies like that, versus companies that are really just built to exploit our data, et cetera, kind of adding, end run value. I will say one thing that I've witnessed in the last 12 to 16 weeks, which is that there's been a fleeing of Silicon Valley. Now that these companies have announced people can work remotely, et cetera, they're starting to increase taxes in California. I know of a mass amount of people that are leaving Silicon Valley. So I guess I wanted to turn that back to you. Like, do you think that's going to end up being like a net positive just in them changing their geography? Or do you think that their geography won't really impact what their end goals are?
It depends on the person at the top of the business. I mean, tone at the top matters. So we like to avoid that. And that's really what DeFi is about. It's about going, you guys make the decision, not me, which is bullshit. I mean, if you take the whole concept of proof of stake, it's proof of share ownership, basically where we call the share not a share, because that's all it is. The definition is purely a share. This has already been decided in court. Everyone thinks this is new. As I keep saying, there was this thing called a web IPO in the 1990s, where token offerings and distributed systems were used to raise money. So it's no different to what we have now, and the same scams. And guess what? Like everything now, nothing was ever created. No token offering in human history has ever created value. So if you're talking about something that's raising money by a token, which isn't what Bitcoin's about, if you're talking about, I've got a token, you're not creating a system to do something else. You're creating a promise and raising money with this token, which is just looking at equity investment. You can call it other things. You can call it securitization of assets. You can call it pre-sales. Every little bit of that is under existing law. There's nothing new there. And it's not a new idea. It's just a computerized token. In the West, we dematerialized shares back in the 1980s. The last country to do it a few years ago was India. The whole world is dematerialized. That means we are on databases. And sitting there going, oh, we're decentralized. Bull crap. Ethereum is not decentralized. It has a small team of people who run what happened. They set the code. They create what happens. If Vitalik and crew want to change the protocol, it changes.
Oh, 100%. Well, I guess I would tend to agree a little bit on that part where it's like you kind of replace one devil for another, right? And
What
we
devil have we
think as
replaced? I mean, the whole
no,
system.
I mean, well, exactly. It's like people. There's this counterculture thing, which is like CEO in a tie equals bad.
Oh, it's not a
Pale,
counterculture thing. It's a
pale,
bunch of assholes who basically run around going, they're bad because they're not me. I mean, is the only way I'll put it.
yeah.
It's not a counterculture thing. It's a bunch of assholes trying to get rich quick without any obligation, responsibility, or care. This is the whole point. Legally, if you raise money, then you have obligations to shareholders. If you have a DeFi thing or an ICO, you have obligations. So if you raise a small amount of money, there are provisions in the US and Britain and whatever else for crowdfunding. You can raise $1 million easily. You can raise $2 million with a bit more, $5 million going through a few hoops. And after that, it becomes more difficult. Guess what? That's good. Here's the thing. The shittiest, worst thing that any startup can get is $50 million. Any startup that gets round A funding of $50 million is the shit show that is basically a scam. Because the first thing that happens if you get a lot of money is nothing.
You get
You
lazy.
go out there and you do a Mt. Gox and you buy a new office and you install cafes and you forget the purpose. To be successful, you need to be hungry. You need to go home worrying. And my wife will tell you about that. She hates it. It's not so bad now, but I mean, back in the early days when I was starting everything and building companies and all the rest, having people knock on your door because you're paying something a little bit late, having to actually negotiate with people, having to sort of go to investors all the time and actually make your targets because you have a 1 month runway and you have to get things done. That's how you make a good business.
Oh, I would tend to agree with that. That's something I've actually always told people. You have to stay hungry. Like there's actually value in it. Like when I have a lot of money, I'm fat and lazy. When I have less money, I wake up really terrified and I run around and I'm like, I gotta do something today, or
Exactly.
like my
When you
life's.
wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat, thinking about, oh fuck, I've got 4 weeks to raise capital, or I'm screwed. My house is on the line. My children's fees are for their school is late. What the hell do I do? When you are shit scared every night, you think about your company
Now,
24/7.
okay, now,
Then
okay,
you
now,
succeed.
go ahead. Now, I'll ask one question. Let's pivot off this. But like, so I've always been in the mentality to say, like, so I think you and I are probably similar in that regard. Like, I know myself. I get my best work done. I almost sometimes try to light money on fire just so I can like go back to like a hungry mentality. It's for anyone listening, it doesn't sound normal. So I tend to give it away. I don't actually light it on fire. But do you think there's any middle ground? Like I've always wondered myself, like, do I
No.
have to be like that? Like, can't people be more calm? Or like, you think there's no middle ground?
There's no middle ground. I'm not a Taoist. I don't believe in the hippie mentality or whatever else. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all have a nice, easy life and whatever else? No, we can't. Everything's at the margin. It's not just economics. If you want to be successful, you have to be at the margin. It's not being nearly good enough. You have to be the best continuously. You have to have a bad day and be there. You have to break your leg and turn up to the meeting in a wheelchair. That's what it really takes.
Got it. All right. So, hey, I think you hit on a few points, especially on proof of work. And we were talking before, I think it's one thing that I would want to chat about. I was reading one of the most recent articles kind of talking about, you know, what proof of work is used for kind of specifically in Bitcoin and how it's kind of been maybe fantasized a little bit or fetishized, whatever terminology you want to use, like how people have kind of made this term So I guess, do you want to explain, like, I guess what you've written recently and what you really want people to understand about it? Like your thoughts on proof of work?
Proof of work is very simple. Proof of work is basically just a signal. It's an economic signal, a handicap principle type signal, where the large dominant player signals where they are and that they have something at risk. That simple. So if you happen to be the largest entity, people know where you are. If you're a cabal of a few, they know where you are. That means we can't, for instance, have someone get 51% and start double spending attacks. Not because of cryptography, not because of inverus numerus, because of the numbers, because of economics and law. Bitcoin's not a cryptographic system. It is an economic system that uses cryptographic algorithms. Very big difference. That's where people don't get it. You get all these computer scientists who have no idea about the real world, and they think, oh, but it's not perfect. Now, I don't know if you're old enough, but I'm old enough to remember checks. So
I had a balance and checkbook in high school, so I'm that old.
Okay, so you remember that people gave checks out, and there were possibilities of people spending the money in the account or double spending their checks and all sorts of things. And yet, that was rare. Why? Because you sign your name and you've now provided a means for someone to come back and take legal redress if you basically do something wrong. And the cost to you, if you get caught, is immense compared to what you gain from the check. So people used to take checks, apart from some areas. Maybe they'd take ID first, whatever else. But checks used to be used, and they could be double spent. You had a timing on
I haven't thought about that in a while, but it's like so much faith in the check. Like the fact that some cashier in the middle of nowhere would take basically an IOU, right? Like we couldn't imagine that in the slightest in today's world, like not even close.
No, but this is part of the problem. You've got all these young guys who have no idea how the world actually works or finance works, and they're running around going, Bitcoin solves all this. No, Bitcoin's not about that. Bitcoin doesn't remove all trust. A trusted third party is an intermediary. It actually is a term that means something different to what they think. So read a few legal textbooks and you'll find a trusted third party has a meaning. It doesn't just mean a middleman, or it doesn't mean any entity. There are actually defined terms here. So unfortunately, you get a lot of misunderstanding when people have tried to shoehorn other ideas into Bitcoin. Now,
so go ahead.
So there are not 10,000 nodes on the BTC network. Full stop. There cannot be 10,000 nodes on the BTC network. There's one consensus.
A Raspberry Pi is not a node?
No. Nodes create blocks. You have one single consensus methodology, the creation of blocks. And the anthropomorphized personification of the word vote has been, which was used 3 times in the white paper, twice not to actually say that Bitcoin's a voting system, and once to basically make an analogy to 2 options. You don't vote on protocol, you don't vote on any of these other things that people think. It's not a democratic system. You have 2 choices. You run the software, it does the job, it's automated, or you attack the network. You vote to run the authentic software, or you vote to be an attacker. And proof of work means if you vote to be an attacker, we know who you are. It's big and displayed and out there. You're not secretly attacking. And in law, if you're a computer attacker, we can take your machines. They can be sequestered. So you invest hundreds of millions of dollars into a facility that can disappear that quickly. That's the security of Bitcoin. The other part is Mathias et al., where they said we could publish what they called round headers, because the whole sort of blockchain concept there was round chain from 1999, which is referenced in the white paper that no one reads my damn references. And what they said was, we don't think that a distributed system would work. We're going to give you a central party, and they will publish, rather than using SPV, which was to put the headers out there, they'll publish them daily in a newspaper. So my concept was, well, 1999, these guys wrote before the internet was really big. It was big enough that they should have really caught on that they could have used it. They didn't, but I guess they were like 50 in 1999, so internet, another fad to them, but anyway. So really what they should have looked at is, we could use the mechanism of this protocol to actually be the thing distributing it. The nodes don't need to have the node headers. The users of the system do. They're the ones who then get to self-audit and detect change.
So I think, like, in the article that you wrote recently, what called out to me was kind of your, because I felt like you obviously weren't explaining proof of work, right? Like, you weren't like remaking an argument for proof of work. You were saying proof of work has developed this, I would say again, fanboy, or like this fascination with people that is maybe misappropriated. And then if you go down that sequence, it kind of, what I pulled out was that it had, you were kind of trying to tie together what, or the disadvantages of where people, they try to apply anonymity. Like, if they try to apply anonymity, right?
They're trying to apply anonymity and create it into a voting system. So I'll step back and say anonymous and proof of stake, where Ethereum wants to go. Think about this for a moment. Proof of stake doesn't mean every person gets a vote. It's not DeFi or decentralized finance. It is the person with the most ability to not only have an investment, but to shelf it and earn money from it. So not the small investor, not the democratized ideal, the large investor gets to say what happens. So if, for instance, you happen to be like a Vitalik and friends who own more than 50% of the network, you always control the network. And the thing that Bitcoin solved, sibling, the ability to uncover nodes and make sure that they're actually the things they say they are. People don't seem to understand this, but Sybil protection is why you can't have anonymous nodes. Bitcoin stopped you being anonymous. It's mentioned in the white paper. Where I say it stops sibling, that stops anonymous nodes. So with an anonymous node and a proof of stake, say we've got 100 shares and I own 50 of them. I can go out there now and split myself up into 50 virtual nodes. And I can vote as if I'm 50 different people. And I can win. Why? Because I can now sybil the network and pretend to be all those other people. That's what they're aiming for. So the same happens with proof of work. If you make Bitcoin a voting system, if you think this is what it solves, you're asinine. Your head is up your ass. Because think about this for a minute. The biggest node now votes. And a small cabal, and that's all it is, votes. And it will always be this way. It's not we get lots of nodes and it distributes. There's no way of doing that. I'm sorry, but this is an NP hard problem. You're not going to solve nodes. The whole point of Bitcoin is to uncover nodes, not to anonymize them. If you anonymize them, then you have the scenario where people can hide as other things. So then you form groups who are many nodes, but are really the same entity. That's what Bitcoin solved. So if you have large voting blocks, that's called a plutocracy, rule by the rich. That's not democratizing finance. These people running around are the ones with all the money, all the power, all of those particular tokens who are going, you poor person can get a say. I maintain control, but I'm not going to tell you. If I want to change the rules and take your money, I can, but that's okay because in the fine print, you've agreed to it. And that's the point. What they're doing is saying it's computer code. You don't need to read the fine print. And this is the secret. They want a contract that can take your money without you reading the fine print, because the fine print is now compiled code.
So if I understand this right, are you saying then, like, the way Bitcoin was designed originally was to say that if a network or if a node's trying to anonymize itself and it has inherent disadvantages, like let's say they're using a Tor exit network or something like that, that like there'll be network effects that make them slower and less efficient, and therefore
Yes.
they won't succeed?
That is correct. Now, part of why the whole block size thing came about is people run around going, we're going to try and fix that. We're going to break Bitcoin so that we can get more nodes. Guess what? You can't. So this is why people now go to, let's put proof of stake in there. You can't. The limiting factor isn't proof of work, isn't proof of stake. It is the blockchain. If we have a blockchain, if we are doing this, the whole purpose is to de-anonymize nodes. So you're getting a system designed to de-anonymize nodes, and you're trying to re-anonymize them. It doesn't work.
Actually, I think I have a good question. So I'm looking at your blog now. And I recently started, before this interview, and we were supposed to do this last week. For everybody who doesn't know, I apologize to Craig. I got really sick and had to reschedule this. It was very nice to allow me to do that. Thank you again. Why do you write these blog posts? So like, okay, like I'm going to look at your last 6. Proof of work is used for a Bitcoin. Keys are identified. What is censorship resistance? Cryptocurrency, the law, cryptocurrency, the law of the horse. Techno-communism, the desire for socialism through code. Is code really law? Why do you write these? Do you write these because you think you get frustrated and people like, you're like, guy, you're pulling your hair out and you want to tell people your thoughts and you think that you can help them evolve or help them think better? Are you venting? Why do you write blog?
So I can't help everyone, but the more people I can get to listen, the less will get scammed. And the more regulators and government officials start reading these things, the more they'll realize that there's nothing here that they can't take action on. All this, it's too decentralized. The only way a blockchain system is decentralized is to be set in stone. No developer groups, no changes, full stop. If you don't have that, you don't have any decentralized. The only decentralized is no more Satoshi, no changes. The protocol's set. Piss off if you want to change it. Full stop.
So I haven't gone and read analytics across the multitude of posts you've written, but like, if you were to pull out a few like common threads, like maybe one to 3, like what would you say are like some key points? Is that ever evolving? Like, have you seen the message you try to get across evolve, or do you think has always kind of been some commonalities behind what you're writing?
There's always commonalities. I think I'm probably becoming a better writer. 10 years ago, my writing sucked. I mean, I did English for engineers and this sort of stuff, but I mean, to be honest, English for engineers doesn't really teach you how to write. Writing a technical report isn't really writing. So since then, I've taken English classes, I've taken literature classes, more history than I care to remember, etc. And the more I write, the better I can get my message across.
Well, so, but I mean, I guess I want to just pull out, like, I mean, I could probably guess, but I'd like to hear from you. Like, what do you think some of, like, what are those points that you're trying to, like, what are the things, like, every day you want to bang your head against the wall? It's like what spurred you? Why on August 18th, did you hop on, and maybe you worked on that post for a week before or 2 weeks before, I don't know your process, but like, why did you think, what triggered you? Like, why did you think that post was important to write about, to really get across to people that the point of proof of work was not this like godlike myth that all of you are like fanboying about, but it's to really say, if I were to tell you the reason, it was to like prevent anonymity, because anonymity breeds scams, and therefore, like, what triggered that? Like, what?
It's all part of other things I'm writing. So at the moment, as I said, I'm writing my PhD in law thesis at the moment. Got chapter 3 of 7 in for review and all the rest. And as I'm going through each of these and the side papers and things like that, then other things come up that I probably should put out there just as a simplified version. So in part, that's where it comes from.
If you think out the next 6 months, what do you think, what do you predict you'll have to write more about, or you'll be inspired to write more about? Like, what do you think, if you look out 6 months, people are going to need to hear more about, have clarification around, would you project?
I think I'm going to have to hammer the same point home again and again. Bitcoin's not anarchist. It's not this. It's about decentralization. Bitcoin is not censorship resistant, whatever the fuck that means. There's no other way to put that. Have to throw in an F-bomb for that one, because what the fuck does that crap mean? I mean, what, we can put out there all the child porn we want and no one can stop us. We can fund terrorists all we want and no one can stop us. Really? Are you that daft? Do you think the government can't stop Bitcoin like that? If you think that, then you are so dumb. It is not funny. There are 32 BTC nodes globally. 32. There are less exchanges. The Liberty Reserve takedown, there were 4,678 banks involved. They were taken down within 1 hour of each other. That, globally. Only a few countries got out of it, including Sierra Leone, because there isn't a government there. But no one cared, because the Americans cut banking off and made that country even more of a shit show at the time. So we sit there going, oh, no one can touch us because we're decentralized. Liberty Reserve had a wallet network of over 50,000 individuals. It was more than 10,000 times more decentralized than Bitcoin ever hopes to be. Bitcoin can never have more than 2,000 nodes in a perfect world where everyone agrees and cooperates rather than competes, which Bitcoin's not designed to do. Full stop. It can't. So we're sitting there going, oh, we can do all this stuff. No, you can't. You know how easy it is to take down every single exchange globally. It could happen in 5 minutes.
I think you just have to take down Cloudflare and AWS, essentially.
Oh, you just tell them to turn them off. But you can take out all of the DNS. None of these work on fast flux, and fast flux networks can be taken down. None of them work without banking. All this, oh, we can use Tether and whatever else. No, you can't. Every single thing here can be seized momentarily. It just hasn't been at the point where the US have given a shit yet, but they will, and it's getting very close to it.
Well, yeah, I think they give more than a shit. It's just a literal, like, what benefit do they have to rocking the cradle? If they probably know their end game, right? Like,
Mhm.
why not sit back and wait, right? Like capture as many fish as you can before you pull the net up.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the other thing. Bitcoin is not anonymous. So as people are discovering slowly, you can follow all the audit trails. There's a permanent, unalterable audit trail. The complete dickwads in Silk Road, every one of them was a complete dickwad who had shit for brains, running around going, Bitcoin's anonymous. No, it's not. Never once did I say Bitcoin was anonymous and could be used for this sort of shit. Those idiots thinking that they could get away with that suck.
It's actually the
Suck.
worst thing. It's actually the worst thing for hiding, right? Like, I mean,
I
you
know.
literally have a complete ledger, like I mean,
Exactly.
every
And you
single
can trace back.
transaction is there. Like, yeah.
And then even the privacy controls that I put into Bitcoin, none of them use. I mean, I said, don't reuse addresses. What do? Same bloody addresses every time, published on a damn website. I mean, they talk about dumb
Well,
criminals.
and I think I said this to you before. And today was just another reminder, right? And I'll give you an example. There's a guy we know, best-hearted guy, nicest guy, not malicious at all. Spent the last few weeks. I mean, whatever. He has a lot of crypto. I would not call this guy a bad guy. He's not a scammer. He's not. Literally, he's one of the nicest people I know. He's like the scientist. Like every time you see him, he'll have a 9-vitamin pill concoction for you. He's just like a very good friend of ours. And he's been on this like yield farming and all this DeFi stuff. You can think what you want of him, right? Whatever. Just interested by it and has been researching it. So we were all at lunch. Hey, do you want to go out to dinner tonight? It's like, no, I got to interview someone who you interviewing. I'm sitting down with Craig Wright. Say, oh, like, yeah, I'm curious to hear some of his thoughts and just what every single thing that he told me about you, right? And again, this is not malicious. I just think that it's really misunderstood. And I think I misunderstood this the first time I talked to you, which is to say, oh, Craig's right, probably is going to want to know why, like, it will be bad for governments to shut down this or this or the other. And I was actually like, man, you don't get it. He's actually the exact opposite. Like, he's here for accountability, transparency. He's not really interested in people hiding. And I think I have asked you this before. I can't remember if I did, but like, I'm very well convinced that if I were to ask 99 out of people that are in quote unquote in crypto, they would have no idea that you're kind of like, you're literally the opposite of the anonymous face mask guy who's
So
like,
I like the concept of conscientious capitalism, which was it's a movement that basically has the idea that to be effective, we need to actually involve not just shareholders, but all of the people in the organization. We have to be socially responsible. We have to involve our customers. And ironically, the best organizations, the ones who have the highest growth, happen to follow this sort of path. Because you can make good short-term money by cutting research and development and cutting a lot of social programs. But the problem is, long-term, your company goes down the tube. Because you think about it, you've got a 10-year return cycle on research and development. So for those 10 years, the CEO can come in there and make his bonuses by cutting all of those expenditures. Great. Apart from at the end of that 10 years, he leaves. What happens? The company goes into a shit spiral.
well, I think I remember reading, I had to pull it up while we were talking because I couldn't remember his name, but it's Larry Fink, BlackRock, like the largest private equity firm. And a year or two ago, he started writing letters, to all of the companies that he owned parts of and saying, we are going to change the way we value companies, right? Like, stop giving me quarterly reports, right? Stop basing it off of that, right? Think longer term. And then you started to see the cascading effect of that, right? Where, I think people tie that to global warming and environmental responsibility, right? I think there's other elements of it. But, I just even as investors kind of signal that, because I think like there's this real upside down mechanism. I mean, when you take like a price earnings ratio, I've always said it, if you're McDonald's and the stock market says your stock needs to go up every year, or we're going to hurt you, and this is based on some price earnings ratio or P ratio, whatever, and now you have a McDonald's on every street corner in the world and everybody eats at your restaurant 3 times a day, how do you make more money, right? How do you show growth? Well, at that point, you need to start cutting, right? You need to stop putting real beef and put fake beef, right? Like, you need to do things that aren't logical, right? Like, you wouldn't send your kids to eat there.
Long term, if you're investing, your share price is going to go up. So long-term investors don't care. Jobbers do. The people like we get in the crypto industry who sit there watching the little the green and red lines go up and down and go, oh, we got to jump in now because it's got a Fibonacci spiral or whatever the fuck.
You would be proud of me if I were to show you my text messages on my phone. The last 4 to 5 weeks, I had been brought. MouseBelt has existed now for over 3 years. You can't find a single bad article about us online. I'm very proud of this. Actually, I say that our reputation is phenomenal, and I have done a lot to protect that. Right, and just in the last 4 weeks, I can't tell you the amount of things that have gotten brought to me that say, "Oh, let's take this short-term decision because of current market sentiment that literally started 4 weeks ago." Right, and I'm looking at people saying, "You want me? 8 weeks ago, you were on this side of the fence, and now 4 weeks later on the other side of the fence because why? Because some guy made a little money that you're jealous of." And I think it's very important in those moments, right, to say, and I told someone last night and said, dude, I would be surprised if anyone you're referencing to me right now is around 18 months. I want to have a company that is around 50 years from now, right? Like, that sounds cool to me, right? Like, I'll sacrifice or be the one asshole in the room that says, hey, something seems wrong here, right? Like, if we had all these theories, we had all these moral or ethos, elements of our business, and now in less than 4 weeks we change, then we need to really reflect, right? And I've started to even be the bad guy in the room lately, I think, sometimes, to just point it out and say, okay, like, if all of you are yes men, then I'll be the asshole, and I have enough sway in the room that you can't run me over. So your job is to, like, basically persuade me. So I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of that going on right now, a lot of it. I think the ICO world died after 2018, towards the end. I mean, right, the SEC crackdown, all these projects dropped, people got pissed because their money lost. And in the last 8 weeks, it's like complete chaos again.
Yeah. But how is that different to Stratton, whatever they were, Wolf of Wall Street thing? I mean, the whole penny share and penny bond issue. Let's see, we've got the internet here, we can call people up and we can pump a penny share. How is this different? I'm sorry, we're not selling the company. The whole token thing is not, I have this idea, this is how I'm going to grow my company. This is how I'm going to make long-term revenue. This is how I'm going to make it profitable. This is the .com boom again. I have a .com website, so I'm going to get millions of dollars because, well, I have totallywankysite.com, and people will pay me $1 million because I registered totallywankysite.com. I mean, that's really what this is about.
So let's go on this DeFi. So let's take one step back on that. Like, have you heard about yield farmers? Like, have you heard about YAM? Have you heard about this?
Yes, unfortunately, I've heard about all this bullshit. What do you actually create? So what are they creating? What are they doing? We're milking the system for money. You guys invest $50 million so that we can slowly take the money away.
Hang on 1 second. I want to let you take this. I apologize for interrupting you, but hopefully what I say right now will make sense. I just want to understand this context as you're going to say what you're about to say. Let's say that somebody had some idea for, here's this, or I found this 200-year-old economic theory from some guy in a book, and I put that to code, and I own 0 of it, and I put it online, and I threw away the key, and I could never change the rules. Do you think in that same light that person If they have literally no upside personally.
Well, then,
right?
first
Like,
of all, that's bullshit. There's no such thing as I put a key out there so no one can change the rules. What crap? Bitcoin isn't my keys, I control everything. That's bullshit. Bitcoin is not encrypted. That concept of I have a key, you can't access something, is encryption. Bitcoin is not encrypted. It has a blockchain that can be verified, the same as any read once, write many databases. Even Hadoop acts that way. Guess what? You can append. You don't even need to do the bullshit that the DAO reversal did. You don't need to alter all that. That was just stupid people who knew nothing about accounting. They didn't even need to do all that BS that caused all the problems. They could have implemented seizure in the code, full stop. And don't believe you can't. It's immutable. Well, sorry, I did not say that. My system has a record that is public. That doesn't mean that you can't actually change the direction of things. In the opt-true-opt-return bug, that would allow miners or nodes to basically seize, freeze, and reallocate Bitcoin. There's nothing stopping that. No number of home users can stop that. No number of Raspberry Pis can stop that. The only thing that makes that choice are developers and miners. One developer group in BTC, run by a small cabal of people. Very simple. One foundation run by a small group of people in Ethereum. You want to change it, you get a court order. Done. That simple. And sit there going, it's decentralized. So frickin' what?
so is there any option for these people,
Apple
you think?
is more decentralized. Apple has more shareholders than every crypto ever conceived, implemented, launched, together, squared.
So do you think
the number squared?
Yeah, no, I got you. So do you think, like, I mean, I'll just say from my perspective, like, I don't think all these guys are bad, right? Like, I'm telling the story of my friend. Like, I think I just say, I think you got to know me well enough. It's like, this is not a bad guy, right? He's just like, I think some people are enthralled by the.
I'll interrupt there. I'll say they are. You know, not because they're actively doing things, because they don't think about what they're doing. If I push a trolley onto a highway, I'm not considering, maybe I'm just going, oh, I don't care, and I'm acting without thought. Then I'm bad. Maybe, or maybe not, I caused an accident. But the whole thing that I don't give a shit is bad. People who worked for Stalin or Hitler or Pol Pot, who just did things because, well, not me, that's bad. If you don't have a spine and a backbone and you can't take responsibility, if you're that much of a freaking snowflake that you think, I just do it because everyone else does it, and you don't consider your actions, you're bad. Not because you're actively seeking harm, because you're doing harm. You are taking money from other people fraudulently. The end. Fraud is a crime. Fraud is a moral crime. Fraud is illegal. Fraud is criminal. And it is morally wrong. Now, Frankfurt, the philosopher from Princeton, came up with a very short but remarkable piece of philosophy called On Bullshit. And he defined the difference between truth and lies and we don't care. And he made a very good argument that there's something worse than actively lying. It's bullshitting, where you don't care, where you just don't give a shit, right, wrong, or indifferent, as long as you benefit. And that's what it's about. It is the worst aspects of everything that led to the financial crisis. The worst aspects of all this. This is far worse. The worst guy in the biggest bank who basically financially raped a whole lot of people, these guys are worse then, because they don't even think about it. They don't give a shit. They're going, I'm okay because I'm okay. They're not thinking about the pensions, the money. They're not thinking about the people who get bankrupted, lose their houses. Why? Because we had an idea. It's our right. Bullshit.
I mean, to be blunt, I agree with a lot of what you just said. I mean, pretty much all of it. It's like the Princess Diana theory, right? It's like accident happens and people, the bystanders watch, they do nothing, right? Like, and I think it's one thing people don't actually calculate in sometimes is morality, right? Like, you know, we can live this world and collect many checks and buy many boats or whatever we think, or be very poor or rich, you know. But I think at one point in this planet, we'll be faced with some consequence of some action, whether it is geographical or yeah. Go ahead.
I'll say the guy who jumps on a hand grenade because he's trained isn't someone I would say is super brave. The guy who reacts and does something isn't super brave. Heroism and bravery are not the idea of a man boy such as Achilles in the Iliad, the big strong guy who just has a bit of a hissy fit, goes off angry and whatever else, and then does his job. Bravery and courage and heroism are doing the hard job, even when you don't expect people to thank you, doing the hard job when you will get shit for it, knowing that you're going to wake up and face something hard over and over again. It's premeditated. Heroism is not just a spur of the moment thing. If people want to do something valuable, important, to change society, it's not going out there and clicking like on Facebook, going, I've done my bit because I've helped this organization because I clicked like and I said their post was really great and I shared it. It's getting out there and doing something, not once, but over and over and over. No matter how much shit people give you, no matter how hard it seems to be, that's what actually matters.
So, and again, I literally agree with 100% what you're saying. There's no way I could just stop there and just say, and for any person that doesn't get it, look inside yourself. For every student listening right now, I think most people's lives are defined by like pretty much consistently doing things that like anyone else could tell you is wrong. And if you actually want to create something successful, I find that you don't really know when it'll hit, when people will respect you for it or whatever. But if you just keep your head down and chart your path, whatever that is, over time the results will be pulled out. But I wanted to just ask, so I want to stick on this for 1 second because there's parts even I don't understand. So like I think one of the things right now of DeFi, right? What I think a lot of people are looking at it is to say that lending and borrowing, right? Like a lot of and let me finish, but a lot of like the tools they're using to say, okay, I'm going to lock up this token and someone else wants to buy it and there's some APY that's paid, whatever. Now, banks are doing that, right? And then I think people could also look at banks and say that there is some moral ambiguity on the bank side. So do you think that's a...
That's not understanding what banks do.
Let me just... You can correct me 100%. But like, I just want to... Let me finish my point. So do you think that act of them owning some crypto putting it in some pool, and then someone else lends it and they get paid an interest rate. Is that bad? And how do you compare that to what's going on now, like in the current system?
So banking is about taking a whole lot of short-term payments and matching long-term obligations. That's really what banking is about. So a home loan, something 20, 30, 40 years, and having lots of small payments going in and out and matching that. That's what banking is about, that people don't seem to understand. Now, what you're talking about is, I've got a token that is going to go up in money and make me money, and I'm going to be able to use that as collateral, which is the equivalent of, I've got a share that I'm going to use as collateral on a loan. How is that different to, I have shares, I seek money based on that collateral? Now, the only real difference here is I have no sort of history on this share. It's just a digital token. It's going to make money. Why? Because it made money. How many ICOs, tokens, and whatever else are bust? I mean, this whole idea.
A lot.
Exactly.
More, well, a lot.
Most of them.
Actually, if you want to know the truth, what I've been seeing, a lot of them that we thought were dead a year and a half ago, about 8 weeks ago when all this hype came back, oh man, they've all rebranded DeFi, and now their token price is up 100%, and they're now revived companies. That's what just happened the last few weeks.
Yeah,
companies
they've
from
conned other
18 months.
people. Which is basically they've conned other people. Have they created a company?
Do you think that then there's no solution for people that want to deploy this other than the traditional
What is
system?
the solution? What is being fixed? I mean, we have a token.
So I'm saying, should they not try it? Like, is there anything?
No, they're fucking criminals. There's no other way to put it. They are con men. Think about this. They're out there going, I'm not doing a company. I've got this imaginary thing that has never done anything, never has any revenue, never has any path to revenue, but I'm lying to you on a false prospectus to raise money, and now I'm going to take a loan on that money.
Well, okay, now I'm not saying the company, people that created it, I'm saying the people that own a digital one of those tokens and lend it. Somebody else with their own cognizance.
I've got into the Ponzi. I've bought from Charles. Charles has sold me the first layer in my Amway scam, and I'm now going to sell it to you. You're just as much of a con man as the first guy. Pyramid schemes only work because some other idiot is also a con and sells it to lots of other people. Is this a real company?
I mean, I have a list here. So I took some. So I established what I have here, 7 things that I think are of DeFi. So lending and borrowing with these digital assets. You think that's not good?
Illegal, unregistered, unlicensed.
Stable coins.
Illegal, unregistered, unlicensed. Where is the damn backing? What are you doing? It's not a use.
Decentralized exchanges.
No such thing. Full stop. Again,
because Ethereum founders can still take control. Essentially, that's why it's
no, because the exchanges are still owned by a person. Sitting there going, I run it on 3 computers. Who gives a fuck? It's still a person. You know, the distributed exchange by Binance is controlled by Binance.
Yeah. Well, that's not probably the best example. I think
it is the best example. There is no less decentralized. Everyone is controlled by an individual. There's no such thing as individuals doing this stuff on nodes. It doesn't exist. It's bullshit. Bitcoin doesn't do that. Bitcoin isn't a decentralized network of every node running things. Your node doesn't help the network unless you're a miner. Not just a pool miner, the pool.
So decentralized DeFi is now hitting margin
DeFi
trading
is
and
a
leverage.
complete scam. They are con men. They are criminal assholes taking money, full stop. Nothing.
You think there's no world that we can own a software between me and you, and I can put something up and you could take it or do whatever you want with it, and there's no world we could get that done?
But that's not what's happening. You're not selling software. You're selling a promise that I'll make a promise to make a promise of software.
Sure.
No delivery. Nothing here delivers.
Oracles, like Chainlink, what do you think about that?
What oracles?
They're like establishing, like helping establish like a, well, I mean, I'm telling you what they call themselves, but like helping establish like some index price.
So what?
Yeah, and I guess
you have an index price.
What would you define Chainlink does? I don't know how much you know.
Scam people. Full stop.
Chainlink is
a scam. We've got a decentralized oracle. Bullshit you do. Sue me. Love you too. The difference is,
well, I can say
unlike Roger Ver, I'm saying it, and I won't challenge jurisdiction because I fight in court. I'm not a cowardly, you know what, who runs away. But I chase. So
I think it's safe to say that your opinion on the above has now been stated.
It's called law. It is illegal in Britain. It is illegal in Europe. It is illegal in America. And going out there and going, it's new. Bullshit, it's new. The same scams happened in the 80s and the 90s and now. This is not new at all. Tokens are not new at all.
And final question on that, and I want to pivot off this, but because I heard you earlier saying about, what did you refer, what was the terminology you used for India moving to digital, I guess? What was the term you used?
Dematerialization. The process where people took paper shares and basically made them a computerized token.
Got it. So you think that like a security token type model, that makes sense, but like as long as it's registered with the state or whatever, as long as it's simply...
with the state? The Australian Stock Exchange is not the state.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
London Exchange is not the state. This is where people go wrong. They're sitting there going, the state. You have a contract with the stock exchange to list. New York Stock Exchange is not the US government. The New York Stock Exchange is not the US government. You realize there is no law in clearinghouses. Clearinghouses are all private law. Contracts between individuals and companies. Full stop. There is not a law on clearinghouses at all. They are private law. And you sit there going, oh, you can't, of course you can do private law. Contractual agreements, mutualized agreements, whatever else, is not government, it's individuals.
Well, let's pivot to something that hopefully we could make it more increase the happiness, the tone of the conversation. So I want to hear about what you're working on. So I heard what you don't like. I want to hear about what you do like. I want to hear about what you're building. I want to hear about what nChain's building. I want to hear what excites you. Talk for at least 2 minutes. I'm going to run real quick, but tell everybody, and it'll kick me off camera. But what are you working on? What excites you? What's nChain?
No, I can't go into all of that. I mean, I still file patents and all the rest. The main thing I do is fairly much plumbing. We make Bitcoin work the way it's meant to be. We're scaling. None of this BS. We can get to whatever we can. The whole scaling thing about Bitcoin was always blocks. You scale because you have more transactions. More transaction equals larger blocks. Very simple equation. Now, that doesn't mean that you give up and move away. The protocol stays the same, but you have nodes have better ways of doing things. Computer science allows us to actually simplify how we send information. We can have transactions on each of the nodes, and we can match just the hash rather than the entirety of things that we're doing. We can have the partial Merkle tree distributed between blocks beforehand. All of that's valid. So at the end of the day, basically the same project I've been doing for the last 11 years, getting Bitcoin working better.
So what, I guess I don't know what you can't tell me. So like, what's excited you the most? Like that, have you figured anything out? And I guess whatever you could say, but like nowadays that you're working on from a business perspective, like what's exciting you the most? Like those core components. Like, have you had any realizations lately? Without disclosing everything.
Yes, but can I talk about them? No.
Trying to think of another way to phrase that. Like what categories of this world, broad, would you say that you're most excited about?
I like making the boring parts of Bitcoin. It's plumbing. I mean, it's not meant to be exciting. It's not meant to get my grandmother interested. It's meant to just be a micropayment system for the base Bitcoin, a token system that works, something that scales, no one running nodes, it's decentralized, we're going to take down government, none of that. It's just like someone walking up to my grandmother and going, hey, grandma, there's TCP. And she'll go, uh-huh, do I care? Yes, but you can get your web page. And she'll go, uh-huh, do I need to know that? Yeah, so that's really what it should be.
My grandmother doesn't care about much of this stuff. The only time she ever, I got her to download Facebook was she was always the gatekeeper of the family affairs, like who's graduated, whose birthday it is, who's getting married. And she said, I will never have a Facebook account. The same way she would never have a computer. And I walked her through these various stages. And then one day she said, hey, do you know it's this person's birthday today? I said, yeah, Grandma, I saw it on Facebook. Oh, did you see ex-cousin got married? Yeah, Grandma, I saw it on Facebook. And then one day I said, hey, Grandma, I think I might know more about the family than you do now. I think 2 days later, I get a friend request from my grandma on Facebook. She's like, man, I'm the guardian of all the family affairs. I usually know all the secrets. But, hey, I know we're running a little over here, probably a lot over. I would like you to tell me more about what you're working on right now. It sounds like a lot of it's secret, so excited to see it in the future. So I guess, I'll give you the floor a little bit. What's on top of your mind? Like, what do you want anybody that's listening to this, whether it's a student, whether it is a general kind of crypto enthusiast?
I like people to think. It's very simple. Stop listening to BS. Stop running around going, it's decentralized, it's going to take down government, and following mantras and crap that people tell you, and start actually thinking. Think, if it does that, what does it replace? And how does it replace it? I mean, sitting there going, everyone will run things. No one, there's no such thing as everyone runs things. I'm sorry, if you had everyone doing that, that becomes what's called a demagoguery, not democracy. And that allows a few people to basically gain power by swaying people and having the mob. That's not what we want. There's no such thing as a system of anarchy. There have been, everyone keeps going, we haven't tried the right, no true Scotsman version of anarchy. I'm sorry, we have tried it. There have been, I know of over 3,100 attempts at anarchist colonies. And I know of 0 that have not involved murder or serious injury. And people go, oh, but they're not anarchist. Bullshit. That's the whole point of not having rules. And when you don't have rules, people get upset because, but I did this thing my way and they did it their way. So then I had to go and kill them. Every time. None of this, oh, it will work this time. And repeating the same crap that has happened for 3,000 years. Anarchy doesn't work. Sorry.
Well, I can't leave on that note, but I do have one. I think maybe be a bit more positive and maybe helpful to some people listening. But so for the students that are, I think for a lot of these students, what I'm realizing, like I never went to college actually, so I'm consider me dumb. I think I'm not, but like, so I don't really know that experience. But I think for a lot of these students, what I'm realizing is that their journey in school is attached to this physical place they go to all the time. And I think a lot of them, I'm realizing, are a bit worried and a bit detracted now that that's not on the table for them. So I guess if you could get a message out to students and say, if they're discouraged or they're down or they're considering, I'm not going to learn anything or my career path's screwed over now, how would you tell them to think about it? Like, does this mean that they have to stop learning? Does it mean that like, even if let's say that schools don't open for 2 years, what advice would you give these 19, 20, 21-year-olds?
I'd say Kong, or what we know as Confucius, Master Kong, Kongxi, basically had the idea that learning is for learning's sake. It is to make us a better individual. And I'd agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not there to get trained. There are two things, and we seem to have forgotten this in education. There is education and there's training. Education is to make us a good, rounded citizen, someone who fits into society, someone who understands morality and virtue. And that's not what we're teaching in unis anymore. We have this BS sort of idea of getting someone a degree for the sake of getting them a degree because then they'll get a job. No, what we need to do is start thinking about training people and start thinking about educating people. The way law used to work, and even other things used to work, is you'd do something like a BA and you'd learn history and liberal arts and all the classical canon. And then you'd go off and get trained. And if you didn't want to go through that and you didn't want to be that part and a manager or whatever else, you would go into an institute of learning and just do the other. But here's something for you. Einstein did philosophy. Einstein did a whole lot of other things other than physics before he did physics. And that's why Einstein sat there and thought about ideas without experiment, without machines, without other people, without groups of 50 people sitting in a room going, how do we think about this? And he came up with things in his head because he learned how to think. And the problem is, we can't see bigger machines.
Hey, I'm losing you a little bit.
Than the biggest computer.
I lost you for about 20 seconds, but there's two people on my team, two of my best friends. They worked for us for many years. One, Ashley Meredith, one, Tyler Olson, and they're both philosophers. They went to school for philosophy, and Ashley's singing our Slack is like in-house philosopher. So we always joke about, I think there will be a reconvergence of technology. And I think they joke sometimes as philosophers that graduated, like, man, where do I get a job? I'm pretty well convinced that there will be this convergence, right? When we start to lose maybe some thought, when we look at AI and who does that car kill when it has to make two decisions and things like that, right? Like how do we actually get back to thinking, constructively rather than just some 23-year-old kid making AI decision?
When we stop calling it artificial intelligence and call it machine, really good machine algorithms or something that isn't as catchy, because it's not artificial intelligence. It's artificial, but it's not intelligent at all. The only intelligence comes from people, full stop.
Yep. All right. Hate to do this. Would love to talk forever. As always, it's a pleasure. Hopefully we can get to do this more. And Craig, really, I've appreciated getting to know you. I appreciate these conversations. I think we're probably on our 5th or 6th hour now. And I think I understand a little bit about who you are. Hopefully, same for me. And appreciate you making the time. I got to run. It's 10:30 p.m. for me.
I'll give you one thing to go out on. If you're
Go
going
ahead,
to make a
take it.
token, think about this before you do. Tokens aren't going to save the world. If you're going to raise capital or whatever else, do it the hard way. The end of the day, you're trying to make something that actually does something for people.
I think that's great advice. So I think my entire computer is about to blow up or something. But anyways, I'm going to run. I'm
No
going to send a
problem.
follow-up. I'll send a follow-up email to you. A few things I want to talk about.
Okay.
And appreciate you making the time. And everybody listening, continue to stay in. And we'll have some more fun here with interviews. And thanks again, Craig.
Talk to you later. Bye.